Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Rabbi. Good morning.
We're learning Mishna Kesubos, Parak Aleph, Chapter 1, Mishnah Vav, Mishnah 6. Okay. Hanei so isha, person marries a woman, v'leimatzil psulim, and the wedding night when he first cohabits with her, he does not find that she is a virgin. That was the impression to begin with when he married her, and now he sees she's not. All right, Hiya Meres, she says, meaning she now comes to claim, Nasti. After the Kedushin, I was nenas, I was violated, I was raped. Meaning, she's saying like this, and your field got flooded. That's an expression of saying basically, hey, it's your bad mazel, it's your bad fortune. So she's saying like this, when the Kedushin was made, as we've been saying, marriage has two parts, the Kedushin and the Nisuin. When the Kedushin was made, she was a Basula. She didn't trick him. She was a Basula then. But after She'erisin, before the Nisuin, she was violated. That caused her to lose her virginity. Because she was violated, she did not commit adultery. She's saying it's not my fault. She was raped. And that's what made her now not a virgin. So you can't say, well, I only meant to marry a virgin, because you did marry a virgin. The Kedushin was done on a virgin. Now now that things got messed up for you. So it's similar to a person who buys a field, and before he gets a chance to pay for it, it gets flooded and it gets ruined. So what does the buyer say to the seller? Sorry, the field got flooded, I'm not going to pay you? That's not true. The seller says to the buyer, you bought the field, and unfortunately you had bad mazel. The field got flooded and got ruined, but you still got to pay for it. See here also, she's saying to him, you and I went ahead and we got married when the Kedushin was made, which is what matters here for the Kedushin, for the payment of the Ksuba. Everything was up and up. The fact that later on you lost out on the fact that I'm not a virgin by the time after the Nisuin, after the chuppah, that's your loss. So she's trying to say, she's claiming that when the marriage took place, which is Kedushin, everything was okay. And it was only afterwards that she lost her virginity. And therefore, if he doesn't want to be married to her, he's got to pay a ksuba. Now, that's the woman's claim. So again, her claim is, when the Kedushin was made, I was a virgin, and it was after the Kedushin that things got messed up. And the other one says, meaning the husband says, now let's read the words. Loiki, not so, ela ad shelo yerastich, but rather before I made erisin on you, before I made kedushin on you, before I married you, that's when it happened. Meaning it already happened by then, you were not a virgin. And therefore my whole purchase was a mistake. The whole marriage was a mistake. I married you with the intention that she's a virgin, and when I made the kedushin, you really weren't. You were hiding it from me. And therefore, I don't have to pay you anything because the whole marriage was a mistake. Now, she has a right to claim what happened to her. She can say, this is what happened to me. Does he know what happened? Does he know what happened to her before? No. He doesn't know whether it happened before or not. But the explanation is really that the husband is not saying for sure. The husband's saying, maybe yeah, maybe not. It could very well be, you're saying it happened after the erisin. Maybe it happened before the erisin. And maybe the fact that you lost by the time I did the Kedushin on you, I married you, you were not a Psula. That means the whole intention that I married you was a mistake, and therefore I don't have to pay a Ksuba. But he's only saying maybe. He can't say for sure. However, his maybe is strong enough to say, no, I don't have to pay you. Why? Because there is a principle, a very important principle when it comes to demanding money from someone. You take money from a person, you, the taker, has to have the burden of proof. So basically he's saying, look, you're making a claim. You have no evidence to it. I don't know. Was it before? Was it after? It could have been before. And if it's before, I don't have to pay you. So you have no right to go ahead and demand money. You cannot demand me to pay you a ksuba until you prove that it actually happened after the marriage, after the erisin. Now again, we know that after the nisuin, after the chuppah, there was no psulim, there was no virginity. That was not a question. The question is, when did she lose it? Did she lose it before the marriage or after before the kedushin, which is before the marriage or after? So this is their argument. She's saying that it was after the marriage, after the kedushin. Therefore, there was no mistake here. There was no tricking anybody here. And therefore, they are married, and he has to give her a ksuba if he doesn't want to stay married to her. And he says, I don't know, maybe it happened beforehand. And I don't have to pay you, therefore. Maybe it happened beforehand. If it happened beforehand, that means the whole thing was a mistake. And right now, without knowing which way to go, I don't have to pay you. The burden of proof is on you. That's their argument. Now, so what's the halacha here? Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Lezer, Oimrim. The sages, Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Lezer said, Nemenes, she is believed. She's the one who is believed. Okay, now, that means her claim that it happened before, after the marriage, she's believed. And he's got to pay a ksuba. What happened to the principle of Hamaitz Mechaver of Haraya? What happened to the principle that the burden of proof should be on her who's trying to get the money out of him? So that explanation is like this, and I'll read it to you from the notes. She is believed because the rule of chazaka, a very important principle in halacha, chazaka. Chazaka means a presumed status, supports her. According to this rule, a person or a thing, remains the same until we know that it changed. Since every woman is born a virgin, her chazaka tells us that she remained a virgin until it is proven otherwise. In our case then, where we have no proof that she lost her virginity before Erisin, we assume that she was still a virgin at that time. That's the principle of chazaka, presumed status. The presumed status is the way you start. That's the way things remain until we know for sure otherwise. In this case, we only know for sure we only know for sure that her status changed, that she wasn't a virgin, right? We know it because now everybody agrees. At this point in time, we know it is that way. And everybody agrees. And she says that she's not a virgin. But she says, when did she stop being a virgin? Not before the marriage, not before the kedushin, but after. Okay, she's admitting after the kedushin, she's not a virgin. Okay, fine. But at the end of the day, that's all we know. From what we know, she, based on the principle of chazaka, of a presumed status, she started as a virgin and she remained that way until we know otherwise. That means that we should assume that she was a virgin when the kedushin was made. And therefore, based on that principle, Rebbe Lezer say she's believed. Now, there's something important here to bring in. And that is, I add this here in the brackets. Typically, a chazaka, this presumed status, typically is not enough to take money away from someone. I mean, if you're having an argument with someone, there's a doubt here, and the burden of proof is on you because you want to take money from a person, and you want to take the money based on a chazaka, whatever the case may be, based on a chazaka, based on the presumed status. You can't take money just based on a presumed status. It's not enough. So if so, what's happening here in our Gemara, in our Mishnah? The answer is, in our Mishnah, there's two things. There's a chazaka, plus her claim is certain. She's saying, I was a virgin during the marriage and it only happened afterwards. She is certain, and he's Shema. Yeah, I don't know. He's not sure. So from the point of the claims, it's called Bari V'Shema. She is certain, he's in doubt. That already gives her a certain advantage over him. Plus the chazaka that she has is going to be enough now to be able to take the money away from him. That is what Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Lezer hold. Rabbi Yeshua says, Loi mipia anu chayin. We do not live from her mouth. That means we cannot work just based on what she said. Meaning, according to Rabbi Yeshua, her claim plus the chazaka, which we know she has, is not enough to take money away from him. Even though she is certain and he is Shema, he is doubt, he's maybe. She is certain, he is not certain, and she has a chazaka. Nonetheless, that's not enough to take money away from him. Therefore, Ella harezu b'cheschas be'ula acheloi tisaris. But rather we assume that she was a be'ula. She is not a virgin. She was not a virgin before she became married to him, before the kedushin. V'ta'atoi, which means that she tricked him. Achetavi raya l'devarah, until she brings a proof to her claim that it happened afterwards. So Rabbi Yeshua says her claim plus the chazaka that she has to say she was a virgin until we know otherwise is still not enough to be able to take money away from him. And therefore, our point of looking at things right now is that we have to assume that she actually tricked him. She was not a virgin when they got married until she proves otherwise. Because at the end of the day, you want to take money from someone, the burden of proof is on you, and that burden of proof has to be more than a certain claim plus a chazaka plus a presumed status. Okay. All right. Now, v'afil manashim asmri v'avor zeh manechshad. V'amru la yisha'ab l'g'dayla asa b'mesh anishma alav shusiba v'hezek laha Yisrael. V'shosak. Even if, let's say, people now came over to this person, to the person who is suspected of speaking badly about someone else, and now people have made a whole fuss about it, all quarrel about it, and they've gone over to the guy, and they have accused him and are fighting and screaming at him for what he caused this damage to somebody else. Vishasak, and he still remained silent, didn't reply. Because even so, you still cannot assume, based on his silence, that he is admitting to the claim against him, and that is true. There is a concept that if somebody makes a claim against you, that you should avoid suspicion, and you should respond and show to the person why it's not true. Okay, so even so, again, this is all, the whole point of the Chofetz Chaim here is to say that when you say rechilas about someone in front of their face, and they remain silent, and he's building it up even more. And not only is there just one person saying it, you're talking about a bunch of people here. You're talking about a group of people that are accusing him of something. That really is something that's really can spread much more and really get out of hand. And nonetheless, he's still silent. And the Chofetz Chaim says, we know that you shouldn't remain silent when people are accusing you. Lishna bisha kalkach v'nechlep arinayseim l'davar amiti ashlo yikab menu shum teshuva. It could very well be that as much it does make sense, as worse it should dispel any accusation about him, but it could be very well be here that this person sees that the people have accepted as the truth to a point that no matter what he says isn't going to help. And actually, when you start trying to go ahead and vindicate yourself, it can make things even worse. And therefore he decided better to say quiet, because whatever he's going to say isn't going to matter anyway. And to be from those people that we praise as those that are shamed, but they're not shamed back. They hear their embarrassment, they hear their shame, and they do not respond. So again, the Chofetz Chaim's point here is that even though this person, the Rechilas is said about this person to his face, you said this, or you did this to so-and-so, and he's not responding, in any situation, the fact that he remains silent is not enough of a proof to say that he's admitting to it, because it could very well be that even if he's someone the Chofetz Chaim said would typically respond to an accusation. But it could very well be here that in this situation, he sizes up the situation, he sees whatever he's going to say is not going to help, and therefore, better to remain silent. And therefore, you cannot now use that to proof his silence to accept what's being said about him, other than to take it to a level of precautionary measure in case that it could for the future. If there's some basis to say that I can accept this, again, as the Chofetz Chaim says, just as precautionary measure, not because it's true, not because I see the person differently, but extra precaution. If there's an element of that here, then that far you can hear out what's being said. But to accept it as the truth, that absolutely cannot be permitted. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Rabbi. So